When the pastor started ranting about the evils of women, saying that Satan walks among us in the body of every female and men must take measures against them. It was later enforced in my mind when I met his very timid granddaughter in high school. She fully believed she was cursed from birth and showed serious signs of abuse. It didn't make me think all Christians are evil, but it showed me how easily a religion led by humans can be warped. That theme has been shown to me too many times now to get behind the idea of any formal religion. For me, it was when everyone found out tons of priests were fucking little kids and the church protected them instead of punishing them and reporting it to the police.
People using it to justify their hate.
People using it to justify everything LMAO.
When I was 6 years old, the pastor gave a letter to my aunt to give to my mom saying that we were not donating enough money to the church. So we stopped going, and I have never been to church since.
Something like this happened to my friend's grandma. The church wrote her a letter basically saying they knew how much money she was making and that she should be giving more to the church. Her response was, "Screw you guys, I'm moving to Mexico."
Being kicked out of Christian school prior to the 3rd grade because my mom bought the wrong edition of the Bible.
There are more than one editions of the Bible?
I worked at a restaurant near a church on Sundays. Rudest bunch of people ever.
Some people believe that being religious makes them better than non-religious. When I left the church I was persona non grata. None of the members will even look at me now. Oh well.
Seeing how people use religion as an excuse to be shitty people around the world. So many people just bend their interpretation of a religion to fit whatever they want.
If I have to boil my experience down to a simple concept, it's this. There's much more nuance, but overall you're using a book that will give you a passage to justify whatever you want to do.
My mother. She instilled some serious shame into me under the guise of God. Some things she said. Not allowed to believe in Santa because that takes credit away from God. Santa was actually a hand of Satan trying to corrupt me. Not allowed to believe in the Easter Bunny because it was also a hand of Satan trying to corrupt me away from Jesus. I wasn't allowed to feel pride in my accomplishments because it's a sin. I was a dickhead because my dad got me fully vaccinated as a child and that is against God's plan. Hollywood is operated by Satan, so I wasn't allowed to watch movies or shows, especially Disney. Harry Potter was an absolute no because witchcraft is an affront to God. Scientists should not be trusted under any circumstances. My rare genetic condition was part of God's plan and I'd understand someday. Not allowed to say, damn, because it's an affront to God. Etc. That combined with her regular, not religious abuse has left me struggling a lot with my religiosity.
It sounds similar to what I was raised to believe, but not to that extreme. I think some people go overboard. Seeing a whole congregation of people perform an exorcism on a 5-year-old boy. I was a teen youth leader at a Southern Baptist church I had been involved with for several years. During Sunday morning service one day, one of the deacons came from the children's church building next door and interrupted the preacher to whisper something in his ear. They both left immediately, and when they returned, were dragging a 4 or 5-year-old boy down the aisle who was screaming like a banshee. They ended up taking him in front of the church, holding him down, and reciting all sorts of bullshit about demonic possession, asking the churchgoers to come up to him and help banish the demon from the child. Kinda ruined God for me.
The worst part about this is that they never suspect the child to be autistic.
Going to a megachurch. They received over $1 million in donations every weekend and spent it on elaborate props and videos rather than helping the community in any meaningful way.
I was taken to a megachurch once for a Christmas thing, and the very first thing I saw upon entering was a life-size bronze statue of the pastor. All I could think was, isn't this a false idol?
The non-answers to all my questions as a kid. You just have to have faith, is a dumb way to respond to an inquisitive mind.
When I was a kid I asked my grandmother where God came from and she smacked me across the face and said, "We don't ask questions like that." I was just being honestly curious because I wanted to understand, and her reaction shocked me. That's where it all started for me.
Religious leaders ruined religion for me.
I never met a single priest who could tell me about heaven, but they all knew every square inch of hell. They built it.
There was never an answer. I wanted to believe desperately. I wanted to, and I begged God to allow me to be doubtless. I tried and tried and tried to make it work. To make it fit. I asked questions. I wondered. I pondered. I just got to a point where there were no more answers. No one had an answer that made sense. Nothing that the next person couldn't alter or contradict. Nothing that was set or fixed. It was all up in the air, and I just needed more faith. I tried. I really did, but my mind just won't allow it anymore.
This is kind of how I felt. Like I believed in God, but it never felt natural to fully conform to the whole faith. The only part that made sense, sometimes, was the idea of a caring creator. But eventually all the other things became too hard to fight, and I just gave up. Realized that my remaining faith was mostly based on fear of hell, not having a God that has my back. This process took years, of course.
When I was sexually assaulted by another boy, and I spoke to my pastor because I was afraid to tell my family. He asked me what I did to make the other kid have impure thoughts and tried to make it out to be my fault. That was the exact moment I lost what little faith I had to begin with.
I was surprised to have to scroll this far to find the weird sex stuff. Mine was a child molester that was a youth group volunteer. He molested several children, all boys, and the church decided that they wouldn't do anything except say he couldn't work with kids anymore. I distinctly remember them talking about it during a service, and I looked back at the guy sitting in the pews and he was smirking. Fucking disgust is all I feel when someone talks about their religion. The fact that if you're not in my religion, you're kinda fucked in the afterlife. I didn't choose my religion, so what makes me so special?
Reminds me of something I read on Wikipedia about Mel Gibson. Greater than when asked about the Catholic doctrine of extra ecclesiam nulla salus, Gibson replied, "There is no salvation for those outside the church. I believe it. Put it this way. My wife is a saint. She's a much better person than I am. Honestly. She's Episcopalian, Church of England. She prays, she believes in God, she knows Jesus, she believes in that stuff. And it's just not fair if she doesn't make it, she's better than I am. But that is a pronouncement from the chair. I go with it. However, greater than Gibson later told Diane Sawyer that he believes non-Catholics and non-Christians can go to heaven. Not like it matters to me because I do not believe in afterlife, but wow. People actually believe that their benevolent God will refuse good people because they had another faith.
The intolerance between different religions, it's harmful to society.
It literally causes wars to break out. It's insane.
My mother telling me Santa wasn't real by saying, "Do you really believe that there is a magic man that files to all the houses worldwide in one night on a sleigh?" I had always been skeptical anyways, but that solidified it. I then wondered at what age she would tell me God isn't real.
I remember being told that dinosaurs weren't real. Sad face.
Being told I was going to rot in hell every time I made a simple mistake.
Shame and embracing suffering are at the forefront of Christianity. You're a piece of shit and can't do anything without God. You were born into sin. My dad has reminded me at least 100,000 times throughout my life that I literally can't do anything on my own. I don't have the capability. I need God to even have a chance. He loves to tell me how impossible it will be for me to succeed without God. That I just can't do it. Epic line to deliver to your child on a regular basis. I used to get upset, but now I know he means well and is just delusional.
It quickly became evident that many people who call themselves religious only do so to feel morally superior to others around them, and then use that superiority to try to control everything they can.
I like to say that Jesus was a carpenter, who gave his followers a hammer to build with. They took the hammer and started hitting other people with it. Being told that being sexually abused as a child was a good thing as God needed to teach me a lesson on hubris and ego. I should accept it as a lesson and be better so I wouldn't fall into the clutches of the devil. I was 7. Apparently I was asking for it.
Hugs to you. My mother blamed me for my sexual assault, so I've been there.
Its followers.
I like your Christ, I do not like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ. Mahatma Gandhi.
Sermons alternated between asking for money, telling us LGBT people were bad, or telling us we were all worthless sinners without God. Left church every Sunday feeling like shit. One week, I just decided I'm not going back. I don't miss it. It reminds me of that church that was telling people to donate their stimulus checks to the church. People were literally starving to death and these bastards wanted their last pennies. Really toxic people at my church growing up. Seeing people only go to church to make connections and gossip rather than actually worship and do good for others.
I knew so many people growing up who called themselves Christian but didn't actually read, let alone follow the Bible. They just cherry-picked a few quotes that appeared to justify whatever they wanted to do.
The fact that there are multiple, but I was taught that only one is correct.
Exactly. There have been 10,000 plus religions throughout time, and the right one is whichever one you belong to. Seems so ridiculous. Also, the lengths religions have gone to over the years to convert or destroy outside communities doesn't seem too in line with being a decent human.
The idea that you're created by an omniscient God, and they give you free will, but will chastise you for using that exact free will is kinda bullshit.
It's even worse because he created the universe knowing exactly how things would play out. He created you the way you are knowing you do things he doesn't like and he'd get an excuse to punish you for them.
I was raised Catholic and I always felt uneasy about the environment. Then I learned I had a great aunt living in a Magdalene laundry. Then the priest who buried my father attacked me 2 weeks later. He came off the worst of that encounter, and I immediately left that so-called church. What I have learned since about it would curl your liver. I'm a volunteer now with the Survivor Network.
What is a Magdalene laundry?
1. Being told as a child that I couldn't become a priest because I was a girl. Even as a 10-year-old I realized how unfair that was and that it's not because I'm a girl that I'm less than. 2. All the sexual assault cases being put under the rug and priests being protected by the Vatican.
When I was a child, there were a few popes in the late 1970s or so, and they were broadcasting the selection process, white or black smoke from the chimneys. I asked my mom who could become pope. She said that, technically, any Catholic could be named pope, and that God would tell the cardinals who that person should be. I was very excited that they could choose me. They didn't, sadly.
There's a short period of time where most of the religion started. Everything prior is mythology and everything after is a cult. How convenient.
Seriously, if I told people that a burning bush talked to me, they'd have me committed.
I wanted to be a pastor. I wanted to be just like my great-grandfather. I was told, in no uncertain terms, that the best I could do was be a pastor's wife. Simply because I don't have a penis. Yeah, I'm out. Fuck that. Very similar story. All I wanted to do was get to pass out the sacrament, trays of water and bread, and waited my whole childhood to be a big enough kid to get to do it. When I reached the age, I was told, no, only the priesthood *, teen boys, does that. You'll just be in young women's. Fuck that. I also then asked, okay, so what do we get to do that's special? Have children. Yeah, okay, well the priesthood is also gonna do that, so. I left that week lol.